All right. So let's start with Yoshana's classroom, and before we go into, what we saw, what were we supposed to see, or what were we coming in to look for, and then let's go into what we saw and what you think the outcomes were, and we can go into what that means you want to do next.
I think the last time that I observed Yoshana was closer to the beginning of the school year. I believe that was the last time that we saw her. And the last time I met with her was at the beginning of the school year because we were looking at student work. So I take that back. The last time I saw her classroom was probably late December, but we looked at some student work and looked at a unit plan earlier this year. And we were starting to see some small increase in student performance that was happening there. So that was a positive thing. But in terms of what I was coming into her classroom to see, being that this was the first observation, and I know that she's in the course test prep, I really just wanted to see level of student engagement and understanding in the things that she was reviewing. She's a person that's a strong executor in terms of classroom management, so I expected to see that be the same. The only thing that in our last conversation that we talked about was I wanted to see more of her personality come out in the classroom. She just seemed very tense, but she knows how to control her classroom. So that's really what I was coming in here to see. When I got in there, she was, in fact, reviewing for the Georgia in the course test. Since our last observation, I actually do feel like I saw more of her personality. I mean, you were with me. I think the last time you saw her, she was very tense, crying. You walked in a moment. Yeah. She was struggling, having a really, really tough time. And I didn't see that today. I saw someone who was comfortable, making small jokes with, the kids. Not to the point where the kids were off task, but she seemed more comfortable. I'm also wondering if that was... go ahead.
I wrote on my notes, she looks like a teacher. She's willing to engage. She's joking around. She definitely it definitely looked very different from the last time I was in her classroom.
It did.
I agree with that.
I'm also now wondering because... she's a person that long-term in this movement, she knows already what she wants to do. Yeah. She wants to do education law policy, and she took her, why am I forgetting the test for the lawyers?
The bar.
I was saying the boards, and I was like, that's medicine. She took the bar in January, late January. Okay. So I'm also wondering if her preparing for that, and that being on her mind, was also weighing on the stress that she brought into the classroom every single day.
Because she was doing that this first semester.
Yeah, because, if she took it in January, I'm assuming that she was doing a whole lot of prep and I know she was, over the break. Yeah. So it was just good to see her loosened up in that way. And I think it actually helped the kids, the kids' response to her, even when we came in there with Taylor and Sean before, it was almost like the kids respected her, but it was not a fear, but just an apprehension, and that I didn't see that. So I was glad about that. So
let's zoom back out for just a second, because I think it's going to help to get clear on because I think this is all helpful context, actually, about Yoshana and what we were coming in to see. Let's name quickly, what were the student outcomes in that class, where we put culture and rigor, and then let's determine what's the next thing for her based on what we saw today.
So let me just go across here on my sheet. So we said that she was doing end-of-course tests. In terms of where students understanding and mastering the material that they were going over, I'm going to go through the rigor and culture as we go through this. I put that they were reviewing for the end-of-course test. They did have some misconceptions and confusions, but this was the time that she set aside to clear that. Mm-hmm. And as she was clearing those misconceptions, they appeared to be on track moving forward. Mm-hmm. So I would hear her say things like, okay, I see you all doing the problems correctly, this time. So my thought is that those misconceptions and confusions were being ironed out. And
talking to kids like Antonio, for example, which is what I did, he could tell me, exactly what the right triangle formula was and how he was using it and why he was using it. Mm-hmm. And it seems like, and he was like, I didn't understand this the first time, but he was able to explain it to me now. Mm-hmm. So it seems like this review is helping. Yeah.
And even at the end, I forgot his name, little short guy, at the beginning, when I first came in, he was like, I don't get this. And by the end of the period, he was walking around because she told him to walk around and help somebody else. Kids, obviously he got that. Yeah. Student behavior, I said, was fine. There were 2 or 3 students who she had to keep like they were falling asleep, and she was like, like that's disrespectful in my class, like get up, and they got up. And the way that she did it was just, she's a teacher, like it was good. And then at the end, like I said, 2 to 3 students were assisting their peers. When they finished their problems, they were walking around assisting and like keeping time or what have you. So student investment in culture, I would say it was compliant. I saw bits and pieces of like interested and hardworking, like glimmers. I wouldn't cast the whole class as that.
I would agree with compliant, and I think, mainly one, because of talking to Antonio, he could tell me like, here's why we're learning this. Right now we're preparing for the ELCT, we're reviewing for it, like it's important for us to be able to pass the test. I mean, I think at least they have some kind of goal that they're driving towards.
And I heard them say, a couple students say, and you might have heard this, they were like, well, Ms. Jones, you see he's thirsty for knowledge. That seems to be a phrase that has now popped up in their class, which was funny. So level of rigor. This is probably the area where I would say I want to focus in on. It went back and forth between factual recall and procedural. So the factual recall was them like actually doing the triangle formula. That was a very factual recall level. I know why she's doing it, because you need to know how to do that to do the upper level problems. But then she also was doing work out of the coach books, which is a more procedural appropriate level in terms of test prep. So I did see both parts. I understand why she did both. I just want to like reiterate and push for her to do more of like what's actually on the test in terms of like kids reading a word problem and having to pull out what they need to do. Because if she stays completely with the let's just do Pythagorean theorem, that's not going to get them ready. It's a piece. It's not going to get them ready. So I just
like they'll be able to compute basic like plug and chug numbers, but they won't be able to understand how to solve a word problem. I understand
that like if that was a breakdown, yes, make sure they know how to do that. But the majority of your time does need to be spent with questions that are more word problem like than what they're going to be. So I feel like that's going to be, so moving on to teacher actions, I just kind of put here like I saw her giving time to review problems. She went around, she helped, I just kind of narrowed what she did it. But as far as the teacher gap that I'm seeing, it's probably going to lie here. I didn't name, let me see. I put she might need more engaging strategies for some of the kids that weren't, to ensure that all kids are engaged at the same level. And then also going back to this, making sure that the appropriateness of the level of rigor is incorporated into more. I didn't have my